Many men face challenges like depression, anxiety, and substance abuse disorders. They are less likely to seek help and more prone to suicide. This often stems from the cultural norms of discouraging men and boys from expressing their emotions. As we enter into June, which is Men's Mental Health Month, we want to bring this topic to light to remind all of the men we know that you are not alone. I'm Laura,
I'm Jesse.
I'm Chesh.
And on the Jericho.
and this is Reconfiguring Reality. So do you agree that men don't talk about mental health because they're told not their boys don't cry. Suck it up and deal. There's
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
dirt in it.
Eh,
Yeah.
partially.
Okay. You want to elaborate on that?
So, being a man, having been raised to be a man, there's two schools that kind of come together to make that philosophy in most men's mind. So, men are conditioned from an early age to be providers. We're problem solvers. We're supposed to be men of action. We're supposed to be the ones that leap into danger and do all the heavy lifting, both literally and figuratively. And so our worth is boiled down to how much we provide our families and loved ones. So it's very money driven in this modern world, but it also is how much did you hunt? Did you build and fix all the house up? Did you get the car? Did you raise the cattle? Whatever it is in your life that determines the outcome of the quality of that life, men are expected to provide that. And despite there being a big feminist movement and things about women empowerment and all that, the roles really haven't switched all that much. And the expectation on men hasn't changed. Now, that only covers half of the issue. The other issue is that oftentimes both men and women weaponize men's weakness. In male relationships, it's often very derogatory and you're always ripping on your friends, and it's just sort of how men tend to bond. Not all men, but a great majority of them. You have these sort of fake competitions. You're sort of measuring up to your friends you know, and the people around you that you meet, right?
I feel
Sizing up
like
the
women do that
competition.
too, though. I feel
They
like women do
do,
that.
but there's a difference, right? Because a woman's role is not expected to be a provider. Many women do provide, right? There's single mothers out there. There's women who bring home the bacon and men who are house husbands and whatnot. But for that very small minority of people, the large majority of women, their money is their money and the man's money is the house's money. Like that's just how most people see things. Like they talk about a partnership, but it's very rarely ever like a 50-50 split. And this is exacerbated the more money a man makes. So, for example, if you're the major breadwinner in your house for a female, it creates a rift in the relationship a lot of the time.
Well, I had that riff before, yeah.
And we're not just talking about those men who choose to be bums and do nothing around the house. I mean, if the man is successful, he's happy. He wanted to be a plumber his whole life, even though plumbers make lots of money now. But let's just say he was making less. His wife was some fancy CEO or a lawyer or something and made like six figures easily, right? So a lot of women are like, geez, your guy only is a plumber. He's only making like 70,000 a year. Like, right? And their mentality and that around the people they surround themselves with often is very negative. The man has to make more money to prove his worth. If he doesn't, then he's simply not a real man, air quotations, right? By some people. Um, and this is where the men get the stigma of, I have to walk it off. I can't afford to be sick. I can't afford to stop working because that expectation by society and by their upbringing is this constant. It's almost like an artificially designed form of depression that's built into men from an early age. When people talk about having like negative voices that tear them down about their looks or about their skills or abilities, men have sort of that's our gift for being men. Is society and the relationships, be it from our mothers, our sisters, or our romantic partners, are that of you're never good enough, you're not earning enough. And even on a casual level, right? This sort of cultural bias bleeds into everything. Uh, for example, a woman will be like, "Oh no, I love my husband. I'm content. I'm so happy." But then she'll make jokes about you need to earn more money so that I can quit my job, right? So that's not as funny as women think it is, but it's something men constantly hear, right? Imagine if the roles were reversed and a woman's main contributing factor in most relationships is her beauty and what she brings aesthetically to a man. So what if he just walked to you every day and go, huh, hey, you need to hurry up and lose some weight so you can be more attractive? How well would that go over, right? But for a man, you can call him ugly and it might hurt his feelings, but he knows he's not a beautiful unicorn. Most men, right? But it's different when you attack his ability to be an earner, when you attack what he perceives to be the core of his person and being. At that point, it's even joking in those light things can cause serious mental, impact towards men. This is why men have a drastically higher suicide rate than women do. Is the
Why
pressures
is
of
it
oh, go ahead.
why is it that men don't seek help like women do?
That was partially to my earlier point, which I was going to get to here in a second, but thank you for bringing it up. Is that men fear being weak because both men and women weaponize it against them. So it's this, for men, it's a bullying tactic. It's not that all men just seek to do it, but there's this sort of mentality, like almost in high school, where you have peer pressure. So if your best friend and you, like, I'll take my best friend, right? I've known the guy over 30 years. He's my son's godfather. I was there for the birth of his two children. And despite how close we are, if I'm not feeling well, his first thing isn't to go, "I'm sorry, bud, tell me about it, what's going on." It's to be like, "Hey, pussy, walk it off."
Mm-hmm.
Right. And although if I really came to him and said I really needed to talk, he would, it's just an uncomfortable space for men. This includes positivity too. My friend is my brother. I don't look at him like just a friend, but I like saying I love you to him is extremely uncomfortable. And it has nothing to do with like romanticism or homosexuality. It's simply an uncomfortable place for men because any emotion that a man shows outside of "let's go, raw, I'm strong" is seen as weakness. And society has taught us that, both from men and women's perspective, if a man shows his emotions, it's a sign of weakness. Now, lots of women want an intelligent man. Lots of women talk about how men's emotions need to be more in line and all this sort of thing. But in reality, it's not the case. No woman that you pretty much almost would ever meet on the street as an average woman is going to be like, "I want my man to just start crying in front of me." Right? They would throw out the sympathetic, "Oh, well, if he needs me, I'd be there for him." But if he had the hysterics that are even 1/10 of what women go through during a trying time, he would just be absolutely seen as like the weakest person in the world.
I don't know what to do when men cry around me. I don't know what to do when women cry around me either, but when men cry around me, it's more like jarring. Like
Exactly,
I
because
think
it's
I
just not
think
expected.
I think the situation is definitely bigger than I thought it was.
Now the problem comes in is that men and women aren't that different. That's the real secret that people don't like to talk about. We like to think that women are the fairer race, and that applies to everything within their person. Instead of just applying it to physicality, people think that their emotions are deeper, that they're more emotional minded, but it's not. It's men are just as emotional as women. The difference is women aren't raised with being punished for being emotional. Like they can they can be completely out of pocket, just completely unhinged at times, and the world largely gives them a pass. Like a woman, for example, you'll see videos all over the internet, women on flights who refuse to leave, and they'll have like all these cops saying, "Well, I'm gonna arrest you. And that's it. I'm gonna give you one more chance. That's it. I'm gonna arrest you." And then it's like 87 chances later, 45 minutes, more drama, and they finally pull them off the plane, and then they still give them more chances. If a guy were to do that, he'd have been tased and slammed to the floor within 5 seconds. There wouldn't have been this, "I'm gonna give you 40 chances to get off the plane." That type of bias, that type of privilege that women have is the reason men's mental health is basically in the shadow. Why even the professionals in the mental health spaces took, you know, what, the better part of 60 years to go like, "Oh wow, men actually have emotions. That's crazy." You know what I mean? Like, and it's a truly it's an epidemic. When you think about incels, you think about men who do these creepy things and who, and they go out and they do these inappropriate and immoral things at times. It doesn't excuse all their problems, but they're driven to this because they're ostracized. Like, you know, the worst thing that can happen to a man is being remembered. Like
Being remembered.
yeah, for most men, we would prefer to be forgotten. It's a sad thing to say, but there's more headache that comes with being a center of attention or being remembered than it does to just not be there. Like you ever hear about a male actor and he's really, really popular, then so he drips off the face of the planet. Outside of his fan base, most people don't really care, right? But you hear about an actress, she may have been in one movie, but she quits the scene and it just goes on forever because it's a different state of being. But when a man has the spotlight on him, it changes things. So take like again famous people, famous females, right? Again, they're given a leeway that men aren't given. So for example, you take someone like Tom Cruise. All it takes is a rumor about him being gay and his entire persona is attacked, right? Jokes are made about him, memes are made about him, all this stuff. But a woman is gay and she's brave and she's strong and she's battling against society and it's all this kind of stuff, right? Well, the support has always been to give women support because throughout human history, men were physically the dominant of the species. Therefore, it just naturally fell in line that we were the protectors and providers. And over time, as things like technology and societies grew, the social structure changed to put women on an even footing in terms of their contributions. They physically are not going to be as dominant, so their mental acuity, their ability to be emotional and empathic in ways towards their family and the people closest to them, their softness allowed those rough edges of men to be eh, you know tempered, and it gave them a place in the privacy of their own home, away from the world, to be emotional, to confide in somebody. But over time, the narrative has switched that men are these evil creatures that go out and do horrible, horrible things. And now that so much more conversations are being had today, we're learning more and more that there's a lot of toxicity between the sexes. There's a lot of misunderstood facts and figures about things, which these getting into much larger topics. But sticking to mental health, people are finally looking at men and saying, "Are you okay?" You know, and um, people are realizing just how deep and introspective men are. But even though uh, men are deep and things like that, we've sort of learned that the world is against us. And not everything is against us, just specifically about our emotions and our mental health. Most men, for example, in relationships, if you hurt them, if you weaponize something against them, like they confide in you about a fear or something they have, and then you use it against them, they don't just, break up with you and say, "Okay, I'm leaving," because they have this overwhelming sense of duty to continue the marriage or continue whatever in order to do what, again, society tells them they should be doing. Their feelings should not, count. And because of that, they simply shut down. Women will say, "Oh, that's my husband. Yep, he just works all day, then he just goes in the shop, and then he goes to bed." He has his boring routine. It's not that he has a boring routine. It's because he knows that if he tries to express himself or to engage in things that he likes and you're not supportive, he doesn't want to feel that rejection every day or that judgment. So he will just nod and kind of do what he's told and stay out of that limelight. Avoid those eyes on him. This is often why men also, when you're younger, you see them very loud and boisterous. They're hanging with the boys, they're screaming and running around doing stuff. But older men, especially, when they hang out, they're very quiet around mixed company. They only get loud in private because, again, they don't want to be judged for things that they feel they are going to be. And this is only worsened over time as this narrative driven from modern feminism has pushed that men are these evil, demonic creatures walking around just unable to contain themselves. There's almost no spaces left where men can feel safe. So more and more men are withdrawing and moving away from things. You've seen like I don't know if you guys have seen it, but if you watch like the news and various articles and things coming out every day about, they're doing like singles mixers and all this kind of stuff that men normally were drugged to. Now they're just abandoned. Women are showing up alone and going, "Where are all the men?" The men are like, "We're tired of it. We're done." Like we just it's like the whole would you take be with a man or be with a bear, right? The argument is so stupid to compare us to some creature that would just eat you rather than look at you. And whether they want to call it a joke, whether they want to call it, you know, empowerment or whatever the narrative is painted, men again are catching slings and arrows, and not men who deservedly should be ridiculed for their behavior, but instead just every man is a monster. you know, and it's funny because, like they had the wage gap argument, right?
Uh-huh.
Women don't understand what it's like to be a man at work. We get harassed, we get sexually harassed, we are put in uncomfortable, situations. But if we complain about it, we become a problem that needs to get rid of. We become not a man. Whereas women can rally all the other women and be like, "Yep, this guy is a douchebag. He looked at me for 10 seconds in the hallway, and you know, that's it. He's
I
on
have
the
a
chopping block."
I have a guy friend that said he got catcalled the other day and he was like thrown back. He didn't know how to respond to that.
Oh yeah, a lot of men do not know how to respond to things. So you'll hear this from women a lot, especially in the dating scene, right? Um, they'll say something like, men just don't pick up on the signals. Like we gave them the go ahead because like your signals don't mean anything to us. Because one, we're usually so worried about whether or not we're going to be called a creeper or something that we don't want to think we understood the signal we just received. So we're just going to avoid it altogether. Because why tempt fate, right? It's like trying to win the lotto. He's got a 99% chance of getting the cops called on you, or 1% chance you might get a date, right? It's just not worth it. And on the other side of things, women, their subtlety only makes sense to them because they romanticize how men and women actually get together, right? And in the movies and books and things, women they do like a coy glance, or they have a slight smile, or they do something where it sounds very nice and pretty, but in the real world, that it's not going to work. I'm not staring at you waiting for you to make a move.
Right.
And
So,
like it's just all these things combined lead to men's mental health. I don't want to make it sound like women are the only problem. Men have just as many anxieties and ADHD and normal mental health issues like everyone that they have to.
yeah, I have a list here of common mental health challenges in men. Do we want to discuss this?
I mean, yeah, I had a list of statistics too, but go ahead.
Um, Depression, obviously we mentioned earlier. And it says men experiencing depression may exhibit symptoms of irritability, anger, and aggression rather than a low mood, which I didn't realize
Hmm.
You didn't realize what?
that they like depressed men are more irritable and angry and aggressive than they are like when I'm depressed, I'm low. I sit and cry for hours for no reason.
Yep.
But men who experience depression tend to be more irritable and angry instead of gonna sit in the corner and cry.
Oh yeah, it's 100% true. Again, it's largely back to our genetic differences. Like if I had a problem with something, if there was a threat in my livelihood back in the day, right, I would just eliminate the threat. But I can't just go beat up an asshole who deserves to get beat up without going to jail. without losing my job, without losing, my family. If I'm many men are just like, we fantasize plenty about beating the tar out of people because they deserve it. But society is not built that way anymore, right? So when you're upset and you're frustrated and you're sad and things, you want to fight something. You want a simple solution to get rid of that. And violence and anger is usually the best solution, but because we live in a society, we can't just go around beating stuff up. So yeah, aggression is often like with you and I, right? When we were together, and I was learning to be more normal, we'll say, right? I yearned for my aggression. I miss it. The rage I felt towards things made me strong. It made me immune to the pain that other people caused me. So having to now deal with emotions and actually like inwardly think about things and think about other people's feelings and be considerate of other people and not just think of myself, right? It's very frustrating and it can be overwhelming for a lot of things.
Anxiety. Anxiety can manifest in various ways, including worry, restlessness, and difficulty concentrating. I see this in you too. When you're anxious or worried about something, you get restless.
Yeah, for me, it's more of a trauma response. I mean, I'm sure men in general do get anxiety. I'm just saying, me personally, it's because I came from a very dangerous childhood. And so I'm used to looking over my shoulder. Like Lorelai and I have this both in common. We do not like to sit with our backs towards the door if we go to
Mm.
a restaurant or someplace. I want to see and know who's coming.
Yep.
Like my preferred place to go to eat in a restaurant is a corner with my back against a wall.
See, I thought that was just common because I hate having my back to the door too.
I don't
Try
mind
and
it,
deal
but
with
I
it.
do like a corner, but to me a corner is like a nice
I
little
just thought that was
like
something normal,
cozy
honestly.
spot.
Jess, it is a 100% a trauma response.
Oh, well, that explains it.
It's also part of your genetics, not to such a severe degree, but
Mm-hmm.
just because we've dealt with predators and prey from our earlier livelihoods before we had cities and all this sort of stuff, the natural instinct, like any animals, I need to have that most advantageous position, right? I don't want to be on the ground in the wide open with no cover.
Is that
So
why? So, okay, so is that why, like, I'll go outside to have a cigarette at work and I kind of perch myself up on a wall? Because I hate being down on the ground.
Yeah, it's part of it.
Okay. I
Height
just thought I
advantage,
was weird.
awareness.
Yeah. The
Like
more
back
you frickin' know.
when I was younger, this is before I met Lorelai, when I was in my early 20s. Um, the moment I got into my relationship that would end with my first marriage, I felt this overwhelming sense of manhood. Like the only way to describe it was like all of the things that I was trained to do my whole life suddenly became real and become very important. So like if I heard something or she said, "What was that noise outside?" I wouldn't just be like, "I'm sure it's nothing." Like I would get up, I would arm myself, and I would patrol my house in the middle of the night. I'd go outside and I'd make a perimeter check. And it wasn't like I was in Vietnam and I had PTSD, but I grew up in a very dangerous place. So, but the more I had to protect, the less I was concerned about my own well-being, and the more I was like, I need to intercept and to destroy the threat.
substance use disorder. Men use alcohol or drugs to cope with mental health issues, which can worsen the problem.
Yep.
Yeah, that's part of the walk it off mentality that men have to endure. When we need to find some way to cope. And with modern men, it's not just abusive substances. Sometimes it's casual substance use like pot, edibles, that sort of thing. Um, really, any hobby men use as sort of a distraction, right? Like they say, boys and their toys. As much as we like to do those things because it reminds us of an innocent time, it's a hobby that we enjoy. It's a simple thing that just puts our mind at ease. It also is a way of coping.
Mm.
So like that's why they go, I don't understand why would my boyfriend just, broke up with me after I, poured water on his Xbox as a joke or because I was mad at him or something. Well, that was his way of dealing with life, and you took a shit on it. So he no longer has something to deal with you, so he's getting rid of the problem.
Some of the other challenges that they face, that they have listed on anyway. We're not going to dive too deeply into these because they make sense, but suicide, PTSD, and bipolar disorder are the ones that are also listed here. And of course, bipolar disorder is not something that we've discussed so much in our podcast, but it is characterizes mood swings between mania and depression.
Yeah,
So those are
there's I believe it's the same for men where there's bipolar disorder 1 and bipolar disorder 2.
mhm.
I believe it's the same for men. I'm not 100% sure where I can't remember which is which, but one you'll hit mania and like extreme lows. The other one is you'll level out or you'll get very, very depressed. You don't reach that manic mania of feeling euphoric.
Right. So, the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, the ADAA, has a lot to say on men's mental health. Um, they say that nearly 1 in 10 men experience some form of depression or anxiety, but less than half of them will seek treatment.
Uh,
Well, isn't that because of the stigma of society, though, that men asking for help makes them weak?
Yeah, it has a lot to do with that. But there's also, for even just the fact of, since men are often the providers in relationships, if you're working, 80 hours a week in a construction job and you're just beat to hell, finding the time between the demand of your wife, the demand of your kids, everything else that's pressing on you, even though your own mental health should be a prime factor, it just falls down on the list. It turns into a side project of, yeah, I'll get that counseling
Yeah,
eventually.
but
Yeah.
that's when if you have a partner, that's where your partner's supposed to stand up and say, hey, I'll pick up the weight so you can get what
It's a nice thought, but
that's
unfortunately,
what a good partner
relationships
does.
nowadays just aren't like that anymore.
a good part. Let me rephrase. A good partner for you would stand up and say, you need to get this done. I'll pick up the slack and then we can reevaluate after that. That's my personal opinion. Because men do it for women all the time. Women need to step up and do it for men. It's not a sign of weakness, and I can't tell if I'm being a good mother or not for the fact that I allow Liam to show his emotions. I don't get mad at him for it. I don't tell him he's supposed to be a man. You're not supposed to cry. And I can't tell if that's the right thing to do with how society is.
So here's a secret that's technically not a secret. A lot of time men are damaged long before they ever get into a relationship. The relationship is sort of like affirmation for what they believe society expects of them. So women, you know the old saying, where they say we hurt the ones we love the most.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That saying really isn't for women, it's for men. Men will take something that by most people's standards, not just women, consider to be a small infraction, a small insult or something, and it will devastate a man because they put so much faith in this romanticized idea of what a relationship is. So if a man is meeting all the quotas, if he's providing all your needs, if he's paying all the bills, if he's working, if he's giving you everything you've ever asked for, and then the woman weaponizes something against him, or she says, you know what, honey, let me take this one, let me shoulder the burden so that you can get some help. Then he gets some help and she turns it back on him and says something in the heat of an argument or whatever, like, well, I'm busy doing all this while you're over there having your session. Somebody's got to do something, right? He already feels weak and vulnerable and already dealing with the idea of that being a bad thing for him to do. And now the person who encouraged him, her true feelings are known, is how he looks at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that just devastates him more. And um, this again is the issue, is that everything is magnified by the time you get there, because a man's baggage isn't how many women I've had, it's what have they done to me along the way. And because they're not allowed to show any of this, most people don't know what you've been through as a man. They just assume you're just a dude. And so, like, when it looks at mental health, right, the statistics by this website talk more about it. For example, men account for about 10% of patients with bulimia and anorexia,
Really?
but men with eating
10%.
disorders are less likely to seek professional help.
Huh. I never even put like any thought in men's having eating disorders. That's crazy. Why did I never think of that?
See, I knew because I've been committed, and there were, to my shock, a couple teenage boys with eating disorders in there. And I'll admit, I was like, there's no way a boy can have an eating disorder. And it kind of makes you wake up a little bit and realize, oh, this isn't, yeah. I don't know how to explain it. It kind of made me realize that I had not negative. What is the word I'm looking for?
It's a bias.
Yes, thank you.
It's a bias preconceived notion. It's like all black people are good athletes, all Asian people are good at math, right? It's whether it's a positive or negative stereotype, that's essentially what it is, right? And so men, why would men have a problem with bulimia and anorexia? That's about looking pretty. That's about being skinny. Well, men are berated for being fat, right? Men are berated for not having muscles, right? Or being too skinny. Even if
Right.
it's just their genetics, they don't aren't a muscly dude by nature, right? That's they suffer from the same slings and arrows women do. It's just the idea again socially is women are supposed to be pretty and men necessarily aren't. So it's not seen to be expected of them to be attractive per se. And as such, when you have a disorder that largely stems around and circumfied by people who are concerned with their physical appearance, we don't think of men. And that sort of is the hot button takeaway from men's health, is that's just it. Men throughout history, just people don't think of men. That is the default, is why do we concern ourselves with them? They're either going to figure it itself, pull themselves up by their bootstraps and go forward. I mean, even here in the West, just saying the United States, let's say, there's the draft. When I turned 18, it was fully expected that I sign my life away, that anybody can go to war for any reason for something stupid, like they just want more oil or whatever. And now I have to go and get murdered because I'm a man. But all the empowered, equal 50-50 women don't have to do that.
No, they should though. Women should have, if women want equality, they should have to enlist in a draft also.
Does
But you
that
see what
mean
I'm
I would
saying though?
also get
Like no one
military
thought we need to fight
disability?
against this. Women
If
weren't
Wait,
even
you,
wait,
allowed to fight forever.
wait. What did Chesh? What did you say?
Oh, I'm just going off of Jesse's comment about like the draft and everything. So like, does that mean if I sign up, do I get disability?
no, so a draft is in an act of war. If they do not have enough people, they do a draft
Oh
and
no, I
it's
know what a
randomized.
draft is, but if
The
I
only
get
way you would
pulled,
get disability
I
is
have
if you were
Crohn's.
injured, they wouldn't take you then.
Yeah.
You
I
would be
know, but that's what I'm
disqualified.
You would
saying. Like if I
you wouldn't
want to
be.
You,
join,
Nope,
they
they
wouldn't
wouldn't
take
take
you. They would not take you no matter what because you have a degenerative illness.
Yeah, they don't even let you go if you have diabetes.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing. And then I get called a horrible woman because I believe that women should have to do exactly what men have to do. But that's just
Okay,
how
All
so
I
right.
believe.
Let me try to get through the rest of this real quick. We
Yep.
only got 5 minutes. So over 6 million men suffer from depression per year, but male depression often goes undiagnosed. More than 3 million men in the US have a panic disorder, agoraphobia, or any other phobia. 2.3 million Americans are affected by bipolar disorder, and an equal amount of men and women develop the illness. The age of onset for men is between 16 to 25 years old. One of the leading causes of disability in America is schizophrenia. Approximately 3.5 million people in the US have been diagnosed, and 90% of those who are diagnosed by age 30 are men.
Oh, wow.
And that schizophrenia, right, there's a lot of different ways that it can appear, but they talked about bipolar. Men can often face a duality between our inner self, our inner child, if you want to, think of it that way, and the outward facing side, the adult side of us that has been, you know, we'll just say developed by our upbringing and societal demands. And those two things at war with one another can cause men to snap in ways that are unpredictable. For example, a lot of unattractive men, overweight men, things like that tend to be more aligned with deviant behavior, not because they truly desire that in most cases, but they've been told their whole life that they're fat or ugly or stupid or undesirable. So what choice do they have left but these fringe and disturbing thoughts, right? It's kind of like if you're starving, it's great on paper to say I'm never going to be a cannibal, but if the only thing left to eat is your dead friends, at some point the menu's going to change. So, but to wrap it up, the warning signs and symptoms for men: escapist behaviors such as spending a lot of time at work or on sports, physical symptoms such as headaches, digestive problems, pain, misuse of alcohol or drugs, controlling, violent, or abusive behavior, anger, irritability, or aggressiveness, inappropriate anger, risky behavior such as reckless driving, noticeable changes in mood, energy level, and appetite, difficulty concentrating, feeling restless or on edge. So these are common mental health signs for men. And I would ask our audience and the rest of my panel here, does that sound like any man you know?
Mm-hmm.
Several.
To all of the men out there that are listening to our podcast, if you feel that you are suffering from a mental health disorder, seek help. Talk to somebody, trusted family member, trusted friend, professional. Consider counseling. Engage in healthy behaviors like exercise, diet, sufficient sleep. Join support groups, and definitely seek professional help if you think you need it. I'm going to link 4 websites in the description. They are National Institute of Mental Health, the Mental Health Foundation, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. All the links will be in the description below. We want to thank you guys for joining us on our podcast today, our little discussion of men's mental health.
Like, follow, subscribe.
Share.
Seek help if you feel you need it, and we'll see you next time.
No feet pics this week. Sorry, guys.